Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this first chapter, we will talk about the introduction. We will see what one can do with HTML5. We will make a first HTML5 project. Then we will test on our cell phone. We will create a virtual reality experience and we will finish our first mobile application. First of all, what can we do with HTML5? You can create a new website or applications. In applications, we have two types of applications: progressive web applications and native web applications. So progressive web applications appear to the user in the same way as a mobile application. That is to say that it will adapt to your phone or your tablet in the same way as if you had downloaded an app on the App Store or Android Store. Native web application, it's a mobile application developed especially for one of the operating systems used by smartphones and tablets. That is to say, iOS, Android, etc. So, our first HTML5 project. So for this project and to avoid having to download anything on your machine, we will use HTML.online code. This is where we will code our HTML5. So you can see that we already have 4 lines of code. The first one is the dot type. Every HTML page will always start with a dot type. You have on the second line the metal charset. So here we'll define the character if you don't put if you, for example, imagine having the accents not displayed correctly or the special characters or the emojis. So the first line you have the title of your page, and the fourth line will define if the page content is optimized for mobile. So we will then have at the top in the blue navigation bar 4 small tabs, including a Save and Run tab. So here it helps you save your changes and you will see your changes displayed in the white boxed area just to the right. So we're going to start writing, for example, a title. For this I'm going to need to use a tag. So I'm going to come and open my tag. A title is writing. H1, tag the biggest title and most important. I'm going to put my travel log title and we're going to save. I have write my result, so I have my title travel log. Then I will come to put a second title as a subtitle. For that I will open a tag and I will put a H2. So I'm going to put a list of countries, for example, that I would have visited, so list of visited countries. And so to write a list in HTML5, we use the UL tag. Inside we will use the LI tag to list, and there I will be able to put several countries. Like Argentina. I can put Brazil. Colombia. US. France. and italic. I'm going to register the list of registered countries. I can also put an image. So we'll put a title and we will put image gallery. So to reflect an image, it's enough to display an image. It's enough to use the tag img. We'll put the source and we'll put the name of the picture that we want to use. So here we'll put photo.jpg. And you can see that if we save the changes, I now have my image. So it's a little large. We can very well modify the size by using the width, simply 100 of its size. So if I save, you see that my image is very well adapted. We can very well use a GIF, so we will do the same thing, and we will use a GIF rather than a JPEG image. I'm also going to resize it to 100, and I'm going to close my tag and save the changes I've made. So you can see now that I have my GIF. So if you ever want to see the resource available, just click on her little tab here to do help, and you'll see the list of resources that are available. So for example, we use photo.jpg and animation.gif. So we can also see that we can zoom in. If you ever need to zoom in on your code page or zoom out, I can very well come and arrange or shrink my results page, and you see that its content adapts to its size. Okay, so now we're going to copy and paste our code. So you do a copy, and we will do a new project. In your little blue tabs, so you click on your project. We put OK, and then we have a new project that opens, which is much more complex. You see that we have an HTML file, a JavaScript file, a CSS file, and a GIF file. So we're going to copy the code that we had before. So you delete that and paste the code that we just made. You see that at the end we have links. So it has to load external files. We'll just move them to the top like that. So it's not obligatory. It's just a little easier to read. So we see. So here we have our JavaScript file, and here our file is our CSS file. Will allow us to add style to our page. So for that we'll open the body tag, and we'll come, for example, to change the color of our seat. Let's say if I put color yellow and I save, you see now that my site, all the ratings have become yellow. Well, it's not that, but for example, if we will put background color, there it will come to change our background. You see, it's really easier. Then to add, for example, a video, so we will put a title, HU, and we call it simply video, and there we will open a tag. We'll put the source. So our source is video.mp4. We will define a size. we will put, for example, 300, and a height that will define to 200. And we'll put, therefore, the small controls. So there, if I say the changes, you see now in my result page, we have our small video with our controls. I have my video scrolling and I can pause it. Create a virtual reality experience with HTML5. We are now going to put a panorama, so of virtual reality. For that, we're going to use a script tag. Which is called a frame. So you type a frame.js. And just below your H1 title, we're going to put a H2 title. And we will simply call it panorama. Then we will open the tag ascend. We will put an attribute and we will define a size and therefore a width and a height. We write width, then we will put a 100% and a height of 300 pixels, for example. We close our tag and inside we open a tag, a sky. And we put our source, so we will be pano.jpg. And I close my tag. I can now save the changes and you can see that I have a panorama. And that with my cursor I can look at 360 from one side or the other. You can do this with your phone by moving your phone, and you will see that the image scrolls from left to right, depending on the angle of your phone. You also have the small logo of the virtual glasses, so by clicking on it you can see that with your virtual reality glasses you can very well visualize this panorama. So now we are going to add links, for example, of contact or social networks at the end of our page. So for that, we're going to put a small title, H2, and we're going to simply put contacts and social networks. So, social network. I'm going to come to put a first link. For that, we are going to use the tag A and H or EF to put another link. So there, for example, let's imagine that we want to put our Twitter. So it would be twitter.com/nickname. We'll put, for example, dev, and so there we will come to put arrobas dev. But it's your nickname. You can put what you want. Then we will put a second link, for example, for our phone number. Then we will write our number, for example, 07. Well, here is not my number. I put a random number. We will put call me. So there it will activate the call of your phone. Whether it is an Android or an Apple, it will activate the call of your phone. Then we will add a tag, for example, for the WhatsApp, if you use WhatsApp. So we put WhatsApp / send text. And there we will say, for example, look at my travel. And we will send a small message, send via WhatsApp. And like that, we will send this message to your contacts and to the people you will have selected via WhatsApp. Now if I come to save these changes, you can see that at the bottom of the page, my little links are displayed at the bottom of the page. We can also add a sound, so now an audio on our GIF. So for that we will add on unclick, and we will tell him speak in this way. When we click on our GIF, an audio will be generated. For example, to give the description of the GIF. So there, we will come in our script file.js and we will write our function. So we call it speak. And we will define a variable called voice, which will be equal to new speech. So it will be the default speech sentences utterance. Then voice.text is equal, and we will write the message we want to hear. For example, this is the shoreline at Shanghai. So speech synthesis point speak voice. So if I save the modifications and I come to click on my GIF, we have well job. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter we will see the first steps with HTML. So let's see HTML syntax. For that you will need a text editor, so I choose PS Code. You will create a file on your desktop that you will name as you want. And inside you will create a file that you will call syntax.html. You can also create it by coming or opening your folder with vcsc and making a new file. Here you can create a new file like that, for example, and there you have a new file, so it's as you wish. Once you have done that, you can open this file with your Chrome or whatever browser you have, and then you can put your window here just next to it, so you will see the modifications that we'll make on our site directly. So we saw that to start HTML file, we need the doc type. So there it is, always this tag that we'll find. So first, to write HTML code, we need tags. The tags, so it's like, for example, to write a paragraph, we use the p tag, like this one. We have several tags. For example, we have the image tag, img, we have the title tag. Well, there are a lot of tags that are opening and closing. So the closing tags, as you can see, they have a little slash just before, and we have tags that are simply opening. So I'm going to erase that. We can put a space, for example, and comma or tag P. You see that right away, VS Code tells me an error, it's not possible to do that. We don't have the right to put a space. So for example, here we have a paragraph tag. I can very well come and write text, for example, cuckoo. If I say, and I come to refresh my page, I have my cuckoo, so hello, that is displayed. So we'll come and put a title tag, and we'll put a title to our page. So our title tag will be called our HTML syntax file, and we will close another tag like this. So now I save the changes, I refresh my page, I found my title in my tab HTML syntax. So I tell you that we also made it, for example, the tag img. So there will be to make an image in our browser, in our website, and for that we will use an attribute. So the attributes can have a value or not. So for example, here we will use the attribute src source. We will define an image. So for the moment I haven't loaded an image, so it won't be displayed, but that doesn't matter. I will put it, for example, profile.jpg, and I will define a size. For it, that doesn't matter, I can put 300. You should know that I can put a space here or a space there by convention. We don't put a space, it's much more readable. So I do like this, and I'm going to close my chevron. So we always have an opening chevron and a closing chevron. So now if I save the changes, you will see that I have a little image that doesn't show because obviously I don't have an image. But it was just to show you. We also have input. And here I'm going to show you that we can have an attribute that doesn't have a value. For example, if I simply put input and I save, you can see that I have an input here. So I can write text inside it. There is no problem. Now if I had an attribute to it, for example, if I put required, you can see that this attribute has no value. And if I save, I will be obliged to fill in this field. Finally, we also have the possibility of putting comments. For example, if I come to write down a sentence, so for example, if I put required is an attribute without value, empty, and I save, you can see that my message is displayed. But this is not what I want. I just want it to be a personal comment. I don't want to show up on my results, so we're going to use a chevron opening. We're going to come in, put a little exclamation mark and 2 dashes. You can see right away that it turns green. I'm also going to close it, put in 2 dashes and a close chevron. This way, as you can see, that is green like this, it's comment. So if I save and I refresh my page, you'll see that it's no longer displayed on the site. It's really a personal comment. It's for information for us developers. So here is the HTML syntax. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. We're going to see how to validate your code. To see if you have any errors, you can very well see it directly on your text editor. For example, we say earlier that if I put a space where it shouldn't be, and while I have my coloring, that will change. So there everything becomes white, whereas before it was colored. So you see, when it's colored, it didn't know it's good. If you see that the coloring changes, it's because you have an error somewhere. In the same way, we have a console. So if I click on it, you can see, so if you ever have any problems, they will be displayed here. We can also have our code validated by a seed called W3C. So here you can have your seed validated headed by the URL. So if you have already hosted your site, you will only have to put it the URL to validate on your site. You can very well upload your file directly or then put your code directly. For example, we will try to upload our file. So you will click on choose a file and there we will directly retrieve your file that we use. So for me, it is syntax.html. So we select it and we click on check. So there you see, it's telling me that I have errors. We will see, for example, here the third error is an error on my img tag because I didn't put the alt attribute. So we will see a little later what is the attribute, but this way you can see your errors. We can also come directly and copy our code here. So for example, we will try to copy our code. I will remove my chevron here on purpose and I'll do a check. So we will see our errors now, and you can see that it tells me that on line 8 I have an error and that I'm missing a chevron in my input required. Now if I had it and I check, I don't have this error anymore. So here are the ways to validate your errors to check if you have any. And then here you can very well check your errors once you go on the running of your site anyway. Your errors will be displayed. It is not necessary to check every half hour on the W3C site. So that's it for the code validation. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. We're going to see the presentation of text with block elements. So we're going to delete what we did previously. We're not going to remove it. We're just going to replace our title with the first step. And we're going to write some text. In fact, our objective will be to create an article. So for the moment, we will just write some text. To write text in a random way, you press lorem and we will choose 200 characters, for example. And then you press tabulation. You can see that it puts text in a random way. If you have, for example, a text in this form, you just press Alt-Z. And then you will have a small paragraph that you can visualize in your screen. We're going to make another one. So we will put, for example, lorem 100 tabulation and the final lorem 50. So in this way, we have 3 paragraphs. Now we're going to save the changes and refresh our page in our browser. So you see that I have my text displayed, but I don't have my spaces. You see that even if I add spaces and refresh, my spaces are not displayed in my browser. For this, you need to use the p tag that we saw earlier, the paragraph tag. For example, if I put my tag here and my closing tag here, we are already going to save the changes and refresh your page. You can already see that I have a first paragraph. Now we're going to do it for each paragraph. Put your p tag here and we will do it for the last paragraph. So, or tag. I've just updated my page and you can see that I now have my free paragraph displayed. Our title that we had put at the top is well displayed in our tab of your browser. It's a first step, and now I will add the title. To add the title, we say that it was enough to use the h1 tag for the most important title. So we have the h1 tag and it goes up to the h6 tag. So from a more important title to the less important. So we will use the h1 tag and we will put a title, for example, block elements. We will save and you will see that I have my title that is displayed above my articles. If now I put a title h2 with a random text, for example, Lauren 5, I save and I update my page, I have a second title that is a different character and a different size. So it is the h2. We will also put a h3. So we will put the same, Lauren 5. We will put something random and we update. You see that I have my h3 which is smaller, so my h1 here, my h2 here, and my h3 here. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. We're going to see how to specify the semantics of words and sentences. So we're going to start by seeing how to put a text in bold. So we're going to take a word at random. For example, we're going to try to put this first sentence in bold. To do this, we're going to use the bold tag. So I'm going to close my tag and I'm going to refresh my page. So you can see that my sentence is now bold. In the same way, we can use the strong tag. We will do an example. We will use our strong tag and I will close it, for example, just after this comma. So if I save now, you see that I have my sentence in bold. We're going to see how to put text in italics. So I'm going to take a random sentence here and I'm going to use the I tag as italic. So I'm going to put my closing tag right here and I'm going to save the changes. So you can see that I have my sentence that appears in italic. In the same way, I can use the em tag. I'm going to show you. We're going to take another random sentence and I'm going to put the em tag. For example, I will just put this word in my tag. I will save it and you will see that I have my word in italics. We also have the possibility of putting the small tag. for example, for something that is not necessarily important. Let's say I have a note here. I will do it like this, and it's not necessarily interesting. It's just a note. I will add a tag called small, and it will shrink my text. You will see. I will save the changes, and you will see that now my text has shrunk. It's not something important, it's just a note. You can very well add your note, for example, underline. For this, we will use the BR tag, which will oblige our browser to skip a line. You see now, it is underlined. We can also delimit, for example, a section. For that, I will use the HR tag. By updating our page, you see that now I have a separation between my two paragraphs. We also have the possibility to use a tag, for example, if we have something between quotation marks, a text between quotation marks. I'm going to put a text between quotation marks just to show you. I'm going to choose a sentence. I'm going to put it between quotation marks like this. And for that, I'm going to use the block quote tag. You will see. I'm going to put my closing tag right here, and I'm going to save the modifications. So you will see now that I have my text here, which is put online, and which is centered, and which is put as a separate section. In this block code tag, I have the site attribute. So here we can put, for example, the HTTP link, google.com. Let's say I took my article from there, and I can very well put my address in this way. Then I can very well add, if I have an abbreviation, for example, instead of putting a note here, I will put NB. I update, so you see that now I have NB, and I will stipulate that is an abbreviation. For that, I will use the attribute ABBR. So I put back my small NB, sorry, I deleted, and I will come to say to him, therefore, what means this abbreviation? With therefore the attribute title. There, I can very well say nota bene. So if I now record and put my cursor on my NB, you see that I have a small instruction that appears giving me the definition of my abbreviation. You can see now that our article looks a little bit more like something. We can also inspect it and see how it looks on a phone. So I will click here and we can select the phone. For example, I can tell him how it will look on an iPhone X. So this is what it would look like on an iPhone X. In the same way, I can very well change, for example, put him a Galaxy 5. Here is how it will look on the Galaxy S5. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. We're going to see how to associate your data to lists. So, how do you make lists? First of all, you have to know that we have two types of lists, ordered lists and unordered lists. Unordered lists are made using the UL type. So, I will show you. We're going to put some text. Sorry, I'm writing in capital letters. I'm putting some text and I'm going to copy this line 5 times. To copy this line, you simply press Alt-Shift with an arrow at the bottom. So I'm going to put this whole paragraph in a UL tag, like I told you. I'm going to put my closing tag at the end. And so in my list, whether it's an ordered list or an ordered list, I'm going to have to list my elements here with a li tag. Each element will be in a li tag, like this. So I'm going to put my closing tag here. And in fact, you're just going to copy this line. I found it's going to be easier. I'm going to delete that and I'm going to copy this line several times. So here, it's as it's the same, it's just faster. I'm going to make a tabulation for more readability. I'm going to save. And refresh my web page. You see now that I have a list in my result. You have by default small dots that can be changed using CSS that we will see later. So here is our ordered list. We can also have an ordered list. So let's imagine that we are going to make an ordered list with our last two paragraphs that we will put here, and we will make an OL. It won't be a UL but an OL. So I will close my tag at the bottom and I will make a tabulation so that it's a little bit clearer. So you see that I put my two paragraphs in a OL tag. In the same way, I'm going to put my LI tags. So I will put my LI here. And I will put one here. I'm going to put a tabulation here so that it's more readable. You see, it's immediately clearer. And I'm going to save and refresh the page in my browser. I go down a little bit. You see now that now my two paragraphs are in a list with a number. So one for my first paragraph and two for my second paragraph. I can very well choose to change, not to put here the one. For that, I'm going to specify in my tag OL my attribute type. Thus, by default, our attribute is on the value 1. We are going to put to him, for example, A. If I record, you see now that I have well instead of the 1 and of the 2, an A and a B. We can very well choose to put a lowercase a. So if I now save, we see that I have a lowercase a and a b. I can also use Roman characters. So you see I have the 1 and 2 in Roman characters, and I can also put it in uppercase. I can also choose to start with whatever I want. For example, I don't want it to start with 1 but with 2. So I simply stipulated that it should start with 2. So you can see that if I put 1 here, I will record it and it will start with 2. So it will continue with 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. I can also add a reverse attribute, and then I will have the opposite. So I will have 2 and 1. Finally, we will see the DL list. The DL tag which means the list description or the list definition. So for this, we will put a DL tag, and in our DL tag, we will have a DT, which will be the description of the term. Let's imagine that for our article, we have an author. And so we will put a tag here, dd, and so it will be the description. We will put, for example, Jane Doe, who is the author. We can very well write a new DT. We will put, for example, the Twitter, and therefore another tag dd to put therefore its account. We'll put @Jane, and we will save the changes and update our page. So if I go to the end of our page, you see that I have now this form of list. So I have my author Jane Doe and therefore the tweet of Jane Doe. So that's it for our lists. Good morning and welcome to HTML5. We are going to see how to regroup elements in containers. So, we can regroup elements in containers. There are several tags, including here we have our list. So we can imagine that it would be a navigation, and the navigation part with several links, for example. For it to be a navigation, it would be enough to add the nav tag. It is a container. So we would put it like this, and it would be our navigation. We also have the header tag and the footer tag. So as you can imagine, the header tag will represent the header and the top of your site, and the footer tag, the footer and the bottom of your site. So we can imagine here that we have our header, which would take into consideration our title, and it could be very well, for example, an image with a logo or whatever. We say that we have our header here, and we will all simply make a tabulation so that it's more readable. And we will add our footer. So often in our footer we find, for example, the copyright or the page, the links of contact, social networks, etc. So there we can very well put, for example, our copyright in the p tag, and we would write copyright like this. And we could also put the contact here. We also have our main tag, which will contain the body of the site, the main part. We can imagine that our main tag contains all our paragraphs. So I will put my tag here, and it will close at the end of all my paragraphs. In the same way, I have my article tag. The article tag can, for example, if you have an e-commerce site, well, for each article, you can have the article tag. Here, we will put our tag article, and we will say that all the paragraphs here represents an article. So we will put it here, Control V. We also have the section tag and the aside tag. The side tag will be used more for an element that is part of the body of your site. But that is not necessarily important information. So we will use the aside tag. For example, then here we had put a nota bene, and I can very well put the aside tag like this. So I'm going to put a tabulation that it's more readable, and we also have our section tag. We can imagine, for example, that would be a section. And so this case will group together elements. So I'm going to define it here. And I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to make a tabulation so that it is more readable. So we have seen the header tag, footer, NAV, the article, the section, and aside. We can also have several tags, for example, header or footer. Finally, we will see the tag div. So the tag div will be used only if you didn't have the opportunity to use the tags that we have just seen. It has no particular meaning. It is used as a last resort to regroup elements. You can imagine that I need to group together these elements, and then I will put a div tag here. I will put the closing tag just below it, and I will put a tabulation so that is more readable. So here we are for the different tags that we use as a containers. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter, we will see how to prepare your images for the web. First of all, you will have to choose the right format. That is to say, whether it is a artwork, a clipboard, an emoji or logos, you should preferably choose the CVG or PNG format. For photos, prefer JPEG format. For your animations, prefer GIF format. You have other formats at your disposal: WebP, APNG, JPG2, JPEGs. Then it will be necessary to remove additional metadata. So it is important if we use photos, for example, that are taken with a phone. So XIF, a lot of information, including your geolocation. So all this information that is not useful, it will be necessary to remove them from our images. For this, we have a site called xifremove.com. We will go immediately to this site. Here we are on the xifremove site, and we will compress and delete the metadata of our images. We are going to make a select a file. You are going to your file to get your images. Choose some images to make a site. For example, choose 3 images. You see I have 3 images in JPEG format, and try to do the same thing with 3 images. I will select my first image, and I will simply remove XIF. You see all the data that my image contains: its name, its size, the model of the phone with which it was taken, the resolution. You even have the location of where the photo was taken. Finally, we don't need all this information, so we will remove them, lighten the photo, and then you do download clean. So we have our photos that have been downloaded. We will do the same thing for the other images. So all the images you have, so in this case we will need 3 images. Try to do the same thing. We will also have to remember to resize the images. Especially, don't keep the originals resolution because your images could be too heavy and therefore could slow down the loading of your web page. Instead, you should find the pixel CSS dimension you want. You should know that about 50 CSS pixels correspond to about 1 centimeter. Then, it would be better to create 2 or 3 variants. For that, it is necessary to go on the site picresize.com and we're going to make it together. Here on the site picresize.com, we will come to choose an image. Let us imagine that I take the first image and I will quite simply come to drag there. So it will load my image. So I find it here. And so all the information is below. My goal is to have an image of 300 CSS pixels. So we are going to use 2 or 3 variations. So for our image 1.jpg, I want it to be 300 pixels. Then image 1, we will say image 2 times point .jpg. I want it to be 600 pixels, and you get the idea. So image 3 times point .jpg, you want it to be 900 pixels. So I'm not going to choose 50% smaller, but I'm going to choose a customizable size. So I'm going to put the size. So let's say I want to put 900 pixels. I don't need to fill in the height because it's calculated automatically. It is a JPG format. I want better quality and I just have to put done. So now my image is resized. I just have to upload it to the computer. I let you do that for all sizes, so with 300, 600 pixels, and for your free images. We will meet again just after. To finish, we will compress our images. So we will use a file compression tool because we mustn't forget that user will be using 3G or 4G networks. So it's better that our images fit perfectly on the final machine. So for this, we will use as tools tinygpg.com. Here we are on the site tinygpg.com. We will simply select all our images, that it is JPG or PNG. So we will also take a logo. So choose an image of PNG format that will serve as a logo, and we will simply drag them here. So here we go. We will wait for everything to compress. And you can see the difference on the right. Our image is smaller. For example, the first one, it has not changed. We're at 0%, but for the second image, we have gained 19%. You can see that for the logo, we have gained 60%. So, ever you can download the images one by clicking on download, or at the bottom, we will click on download and we will replace all the images we had in our file. So that's it for the preparation of the images. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter, we are going to see the rendering of pictures and images. Now, you're going to open your file with all your images that you have resized and compressed with Visual Studio Code. We are also going to add an index.html file that contains everything you see there. I will let you pause it to copy what I did. We are going to try to display an image in our render. For that, I will start, for example, with my logo, and we will put in our header. To display an image, we will use the tag img, in which contains two attributes. So, the source attribute and the LT attribute. The attribute source, we will put to him the way of our image, and to LT we will put to him a description of our image, in case this one doesn't appear to the screen. We will specify the way of our image. Here we see that I put my image in the image file, and that my logo is here. I put my file image/my logo. Then in the LT I will put a description, for example, conference HTML5, and I will come already to see the modifications. I see well my logo is displayed. I find it a little bit big for a logo, therefore we will resize it. For this we will use the height that we have already seen, so we can put a height, for example, of 50 pixels. If I save it, it is now resized, it's smaller. What I prefer is to work with percentages, so instead of setting a height, we will set a width. I will tell him 50% of his container. So if he doesn't have a container, it will be 50% of the page. Here, so it will be 50% of our header. We are now going to display the other images as a list. So I'm going to choose to put just below my H2 title, and so we're going to put a UL tag where we are going to put our lists. So here I'm going to display my first image. So the source will be the image/event1, and in the LT tag we are going to put event picture. So we can choose to display them one below the other so that it's a little more readable. I will also define a size. To know the size, we can click directly on event 1, for example the image we have chosen, and you will see that at the bottom you have the size displayed. At the bottom of your little blue line you have a whole image with 300 times 82 written on it. We will simply transfer the size. So here in the size we're going to put a width at 300% and a height at 82%. Then we saw that we had several images that we resized to fit the different machines that would have a higher definition. For this, we will simply put our source 7, and here we will put the images that we have. So we have the event 1.jpg. We also have the image event 1-2 x.jpg, and we have the image event 1-3 x.jpg. So there, we will stipulate our image size. So there it is once, there it is twice, and the last one is 3 times. So the browser will choose directly the image that corresponds to the machine. Now I can save my changes, and you can see that my image is displayed with the right size. I will simply copy and paste what I have just done, and we will do it with our other 2 images. We will simply change and put 2 everywhere. This way, it will be a little bit faster. And below it will be even 3. So now, if I refresh my page, I have all my images displayed. However, you can see how image 2 and my image 3 are not the right format. The resolution is completely unclear and not adapted. We are going to write our correct size. To do this, we click on Event 2 and we see that its size is 300 times 225. So we will write 200 times 225, and for Event 3, its size is 300 times 183. Now I update, and you see that it's much better. We are also going to put a GIF, so you can download a GIF, that one you like. You don't have to have the same as me. Choose something you like and we will add our GIF. So we're going to put it above our title as true. So I'm going to put my EMG tag and then I'm going to choose my GIF. For me it's animation.gif. In reality, I'm going to put simple animation and I'm going to give it a size. I will give it a width of 90%. So if I save and refresh my page, I have my GIF displayed and my images underneath. We can also add a caption to our image. For example, we will use a tag called figure. I'm going to put my image inside it, and there I will add a tag called fig caption. I will simply put my caption here. For example, here I will say that it's an image from previous editions of the conference, and I will refresh my page. You can see now that I have my caption displayed here below my image. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter we will look at rendering data tables. To make a table, we will use the table tag. In the table tag, we are going to start by putting a caption tag for our little caption, and we are going to put, for example, conference by the So now we are going to put a header. So we are going to put a thread tag, and in this case we are going to put a tr that will correspond to a line. In our line we're going to put several cells. So we're going to put the time. We're going to put, for example, the name of the conference, and we are going to put the name of the room. So room name. Then we can have a t-body, so it will be the body. In our t-body, in the same way, we will have a tr, and in this tr we will have cells. The first cell, we said we had a header called time, so we are going to put 9 o'clock. Then we will add a cell with the name of the conference that we will call keynote. We also have a cell for the name of the room called Toto. We are already going to refresh our page to see the rendering. So we can see here our little table. So we have our little title, our caption, conference by Div. We have here, or at the head of our table, of our three cells, the time, the name of the conference, and the name of the room. We start to complete our cells. We will continue quietly and add a tier. I will simply copy here and paste. We are going to change the data a little bit. We are going to put 12 o'clock. The name of the room, we're going to say it's lunch. And we will put in the restaurant. I'm going to copy all this and put, for example, 2 p.m. We have a training on HTML5 in the training room. So I'm going to update my rendering, and I can see now that my table has more data. I'm going to add one more line, and I want to show you why. Let's say I have the same schedule for HTML5 in a different room. Let's say we have 2 rooms, so we will call the second room, I don't know, Tata. I'm not so inspired. So I update, and we end up with 2 lines with the same data. It's a bit repetitive. We don't want to repeat the data, so we can use the row span. So I will show you. So here we will put row span, and we will tell it equal to. That way we will take 2 cells. I won't have to put this one in. And in the same way, we're going to do the same thing here, because we already have our course and we don't want to repeat. And if I update, you can see that now I have a single line. So at 2 p.m. I have an HTML5 course, either in the training room or in the Tata room. Finally, we will finish with the last piece of data. So let's imagine that we also have a t-foot, and so in this foot I will have a tier, and then TD. In this TD, I'm going to put, for example, AAM, and I'm going to add a second cell, this time with call_span. And this call_span is going to take up 2 columns. You will see. So there, I'm going to put in a heading, for example, the end of the conference. And I'm going to record it. So you can see now that I have my end of conference, which takes up 2 columns. You can see that it doesn't stop. I can add, for example, 3 small dots. If I update, you can see that it takes up 2 columns of my table. We can obviously add some style and all that, but that will be done with CSS, which we will see later. But in any case, here is the table. So we have the table tags or table, the header T-head, the body T-body, and the foot of the table T-foot. So we have tiers which correspond to our lines, THs to the cells of our header, and TDs which correspond to the cells of our data. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter we're going to see how to apply the basic styles. So I choose a file, so as you can see that has no style, it's kind of raw. In my file I have 2 HTML pages, so the index.html and pacman.html. I also have an images file with images in PNG format and a game file with PNG images as well. So we're going to work on the index.html file and we're going to see how to add some style to our file. So we're going to start by trying to put our title that you see there, so retro and classic in color. For that, I will come in my title and I will add a style tag. Here I'm going to put color. You see that just by typing the first letter, I already have suggestions. We want to change the color of the text, so we're going to choose color, and here we will be able to choose the color we want. So I'm going to put in green. So by saving, you can see that my title becomes green. We will also try to put a background for our header. So I'm going to click it, my header, and in the same way I'm going to put a tag, a style attribute. So here I want my background to be a different color, so it's going to be background color. And I'm going to assign it a color, so we are going to put yellow. I'm going to save, and you can see now that I have a background for my header. So if we want to add other styles, we can add them one after the other. It's not necessary to add a style tag like that. It's not required at all. We can have only one attribute style. So we will simply add what we want to continue. Let's say I want to put a margin all around my header. Well, I'm going to put a margin on it. And I'm going to say, for example, a margin of 10 pixels. Now, if I save, you can see that all around my header, I have a margin equivalent to 10 pixels. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter, we're going to talk about targeting HTML tags with selectors. Let's see how we can add style to our page. We're going to put a style tag here, and in fact, between these tags, we're going to put our CSS. Earlier, we put a H1 title in green. So we're going to remove what we had put in and put it here instead. So we're going to put our H1 and we're going to open the braces. Inside the braces, we will put our style. So we say green. Now, if I refresh, you see that my title is still green. To show you, I can change and put, for example, pink. You see that my title is now pink. I'm going to put green again because I like it. And we're going to try to stylize, for example, our header. So, our header is here. And we're going to style it with a background and a margin like we did before by putting the style here. Now, I'm going to remove the style. I'm going to put it here. So we said it was our header, so I'm going to write it and I'm going to open my braces. I'm going to put its background color that we had set to yellow and the margin that we had set to 10 pixels. Now, if I update, I have my header which is still in yellow and with a margin of 10 pixels all around. Now we have another way of doing things with IDs. So, ID selector. Yes, so this is the way to put comments in CSS. We had seen that to put comments in HTML, it was enough to write them like this. In the CSS, the comments are made with a slash and an asterisk. So for IDs, we're going to put, for example, our little subtitle here. We're going to add some style to it, so let's find our little subtitle. It's here. To do this, we're going to have to add an ID to it. So I'm going to add an ID to it that I will simply call subtitle. It's a subtitle. To call our ID, we will have to put a hashtag, a hash. So I put subtitle and I open my braces. In the same way, I can define its style. For example, if I want to change its font size, I can do it this way. And so if I save, you see now that its size is bigger. You might say to me, but why not call the tag directly? Because if we call the tag P, then all our paragraphs that have this tag P will have the style that we have defined. I can do it with you. Let's imagine, for example, that I'm going to put this in a commentary and that I simply call a P tag. I put its style on it, so we will put the same font size. We will put it so that it's clearly visible. We will put XX large, so I put in an update, and you can see that now all my paragraphs have become very large. That's not what I wanted. What I wanted was just for my subtitle here to be a little larger. So I'm going to delete that because that's not what we wanted. I'm going to uncomment my line here. So I'm updating and that's what I wanted. I can also change the style of several selectors. For example, I'm going to show you here. We have a list. You see we have LI also here. So, if I want to change the style of my LIS, but not of this, only this LIS, I can very well put a clause on them to be able to give them a particular style. I will simply put a class that I will call post, and I will put this class on all the LIS that I want to design. So I put it to him, and to him. So in this way, now if I call my class, so here we're going to say class selector. To call a class, we simply put a dot. I call it post. I open my braces and I'm going to style it. For example, we're going to put a border on the left, so border left, which will be 4 pixels thick with a solid style and a color. We're going to stay in green. So if I refresh, now you can see that my pieces have a green border on the left side. So this list doesn't have a border. I have targeted only the LIS that are here. So you can also use multiple selectors at the same time to assign a style. So I'm going to put multiple. Let's say I want to assign the same style to my paragraphs and my H2 title, for example. I simply separate them with a comma. Now, if I change the color of my text and put gray on it, I save and refresh my page, you can see that all my paragraphs and my H2 titles as well as my paragraphs are now gray. We also have the possibility of assigning a style by descent. So here I put descendant. In fact, we will see that here I had my LA list to which I have not yet assigned a style. Well, if I want to assign a style without assigning it an ID or a class, for example, I can very well assign it a style using its parents. That is to say, the NAV. So you can see how to do it. I will simply call its parent. So in its parent we have the LA, and then I will be able to assign it a style. So I'm going to give it a font size large, and I can give it, for example, a font weight in bold, so bold. This way, if I save, you can see that this list now has a larger font and a bolder character. But my other lists have not changed. I changed the style only of this list, which was in navy, as you can see. So my list is in NAV, but my other lists are not in a navy. They are in the main. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter, we will see how to add margins and borders. First of all, the basic concept of the box model. Each block element has the model and therefore allows you to define and change the spaces and borders. So, here is what the box model looks like. You can see in blue we have the content, and between the content and its border we have a margin called the padding, which is between other content and its border. As for the margin, it will be outside the border. We will see this in practice later. Then, how to work with the margin and the padding. So in fact, you can use them with one value for all the borders. That is to say, for example, if you put a margin at 20 pixels, it will be applied to all the borders, whether they are on the top, the right, the bottom, or the left. There will be 20 pixels of margin. You can use it with two values. So for example, here I put 10 pixels as the first value and 40 pixels as the second value, which means that at the top and bottom you will have a margin of 10 pixels. At the right and left, you will have a margin of 40 pixels. We can also use it with four values. So we start at the top and turn in a clockwise direction. So at the top we will have 0 pixels, on the right 30 pixels, at the bottom 10 pixels, and on the left 50 pixels. Finally, we can work with the border styles directly by indicating, for example, the margin right. So you will only have a margin on the right, the padding bottom you will have a padding only at the bottom, border top, and margin left. Work with borders. Here is what your code will look like. You will have to choose a selector, so it could be any tag, class or ID you choose. Let's say that here it is, for example, your H1. You will put your border 1 pixel. So 1 pixel will correspond to your thickness, so it will always be in this direction. We will take 3 values, so 1 pixel is the thickness. Then the second value is solid, but it can very well be dashed or dotted. In fact, it will be the design of your border, so it can be united, continuous, it can be small points, small lines. It's according to your choice. Then the last value blue, which corresponds to the color of your border. So we will see all that as an example. Back over to our code, we will see how to manipulate the margin and padding in an example. So here we had our header, which is shown here in yellow on our rendering, and we're going to modify the margin that we had set, a margin of 10. Let's see what it looks like if I set it to 0 and refresh my page. You can see that now my margin has disappeared. I'm going to add a margin to see here what it does. You see I put, for example, another margin and I say 20 pixels. If I refresh, you see who will consider my second value. By the way, I forgot semicolon. I update again. In fact, if you put 2 times the margin, it will not consider your first value. It will take only the second value. We're going to put a padding. We're going to define it at 30 pixels. We will see what it gives. I am updating now, and so you can see the difference. Here is the border, so the space between the border and your content here has widened and is now 30 pixels. You can see that if I reset it to 0, I won't have the space between my content and my border anymore. I'm going to put a margin back in, so you can see the difference. If I set the margin, now the space is white. I have a space between my border and the outside of my border. So the white space is 30 pixels. So I'm going to set it to 0 and I'm going to leave my padding at 30. You can see now that even though I set the margin to 0 pixels, I still have a small white margin in my rendering all around my yellow frame. Well, that is because we have an element called the body, and we need to set these margins and its padding to 0. So we're going to do that together. We're going to call our body, and I'm going to set its margin to 0. So in fact, when you have a value of 0, you don't have to set it to, for example, a pixel or any other unit, because 0 remains 0 in any unit. So if I update, you will see that I don't have any white margin at all. Everything is at 0. In fact, our body in our code will be located here. So I'm going to put my body here, and the closing tag is going to be at the end of my code here. So if I refresh, you will see that I don't have a margin at the top or on the left or on the right of my header. Now let's try to change our pieces. We're going to try to add a border between our content and the green border here. So we're going to go back into our code. We're going to look for our selector that we had put there. We had put post. We're going to add a padding to it. This time a padding left. And we're going to put in a padding left of 15 pixels. So if you update, you see that now I have a space between my border and my content, only at left, because we put a padding left. We will also try to separate our pieces. You see that are all stuck to each other. We will try to add a border between our first, our second, and our first pieces, and etc. Each piece will have a space at the bottom to separate them. We will simply add a margin at the bottom, so margin bottom, that we will define, for example, at 30 pixels, and we will see what happens. So if I now update, you can see that just below I have a space between my two pieces. In fact, between all my pieces. In this way, they are spaced between them. I can put a larger margin so that you really see the difference here. You see that all my pieces are well separated from each other. Then we're going to try to work a little on our footer. You see that is a little sad and a little all alone. So we're going to add a little bit of style to it. So we're going to add our footer selector here. And we are going to put a background on it. For example, we will put a background color on it and we will set it to black. So if I update, it's already bedded. We can put a padding on it. So here we will work with the values at the bottom and right, left. So we will define two values. We will put 40 pixels at the top and bottom and 20 pixels at the right and left. I will update it. You can see that it's much nicer. So we have 40 pixels at the top and bottom and 20 pixels at the right and left. Our piece is much nicer. It looks like a little bit more like something, and we're going to continue on. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter, we're going to see the style of the text and the colors. Let's try to change the style of our H1. So for this, we will use our H1 selector and we will immediately try to put a margin bottom. We will define it at 0. So if I update, I have a margin that is reduced. We will change its style. For this. We will use font family. Now we can specify which font we can use. We will select it. So in fact, it will select Verdana. If there is no Verdana, then Geneva or Talma, and if neither of them is there, then it will be sans serif, according to your browsers. If I update, you can see that my font has been changed. We are also going to change its size. So we are going to put a font size that we will define at 20 pixels, for example. I'm going to update, and you can see that the size has been changed. It's much smaller. You can easily put comma numerals. You can see that it has changed a little bit, and you can also change the unit of measure by putting point instead of pixels. So it will depend on your purpose and on the browser. I like to use pixels, so I will leave it in pixels. Then we can change, for example, whether it's bold or normal. For that we will use font weight. You can see that by default our H1 is already in bold, so we're going to put in normal as well, and then I will update it. So you can see that it's now in normal and no more in bold. We're also going to modify the paragraphs of our articles. So for that we're going to look for our selector. So these are articles, we don't have one. We're going to add it. So it's RP, which is on our article. You can see it, I show you in the code. Our articles are well here. And we want to change the paragraph. So our tag P. It is well the P in our article. Here we are going to change the size of the font. So font size that we could put at 15 pixels. I have updated my reduce font. I can line the text, so with a text line that I can choose. For example, if we put center, you see that now my text is centered. I want my text to be justified. So you see that is justified now, but my text really goes to the border. You can see that it's really stuck to the border on the right. I don't want it to be stuck to the right border, so I'm going to add a margin on the right. A small margin, so we will say 20 pixels. I'm going to save, and you can see that it's much nicer now. So we can also modify our title here. So our title is in the article and it's in H2 title. Well, I'm just going to change the color of my text. So you see I have quite a few color suggestions. Just write the color in English. So there, if you scroll down, you have a lot of choices. So for example, if I select magenta, you see that now it's this color. I can also use hexadecimal codes. So RGB, red, green, and blue. For example, if I put 888, so as much blue as green and red, if I update it, it turns gray. Another way, you can, for example, by passing your cursor over it, select the color you want, and you choose, for example, green. And well, I choose the color I want. We will take this one instead, and we do OK. I update, and I have green here. So that's it for the text and color styles. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter, we're going to look at layout lists with flexbox. We have a list here, so we will try to remove our bullets, which are here in the form of small circles. To do that, we are going to have to call our UL selector. So I'm going to move over here and I'm going to call the UL. To get ahead of the future, I can also call the OL. So I'm going to put a list style Here, it's going to override the default behavior of our lists, so we don't see the little errors anymore. If I update, you can see that I no longer have these little bullets. I can also override the padding that we have. I'm going to set it to 0. Actually, if I put on O instead of a 0, it can work. So there you go. We can also navigate to our other file. We also had the same style of list, and well, if I refresh now, I don't have my bullets anymore, and I have my padding that has been cancelled. So here we had put a green border. We are going to add a margin to it, because you can see that it's really stuck to the border. It's not pretty. So we are going to get our post, and we are going to add a margin to the left of it. For example, 15 pixels. If I save this, it's much nicer like this. So now we are going to try to put our list in a horizontal shape and not a vertical one, so that it looks like a menu. So I'm going to go into my index file and I'm going to find my list. So it's here. So what we can do is use the li selector directly. The problem we're going to have is that we had several aliases, so it will modify all our aliases. Here, what we can also do is put an ID, for example, call it menu. And we can use the descendant directly because the alias is in a NAV. So here we will do it like that. We will use our NAV. We go back to our style sheet, and it seems to me that we had already used here. So we are going to complete it, and we are going to add a flow left, so that our list is horizontal and no longer vertical. So if I update, you can see that my list is now horizontal. Then we are going to add a margin between the elements. So we will put a margin on the right of each element of about 5 pixels. We will see how it goes, it's not bad. We can put a background, so a background, for example, just white. I update it, already looks like something. It's much better. We'll put a little padding. So if I put a padding, for example, of 3 pixels, let's see what it gives. It's already pretty good. So here we have a menu that is starting to look like something. The problem is that if I enlarge my page, you can see that my menu is totally on the left. I would like it to be more centered, so we're going to work with the flexbox. So to use the flexbox, we'll have to tell the container that we want a flex display. So in our list that is there, our container is the UL. I go back to my style sheet. I look for my UL which is there. And here I have to put a display flex on it. But the problem we're going to have is that I put my display flex here. It's going to apply to all my ULs. And I don't want it to. I want it to apply only to the ULs of my NAV. However, we will use our descendants. So we have a NAV here, and we are simply going to add a UL in this way. And we're going to tell it to display flex. Now that we have told it that it's a display flex, we're going to be able to play with the direction. So you do flex direction, and then we're going to tell it the direction we want. So let's say we will tell him column. If I update, you see that I'm back to square one and they are back in a vertical way. I can tell him column reverse, and you see, if I say column reverse, what will happen is that my navigation will be reversed. My home will be at the bottom, you see everything is reverse. In the same way, I can put a row reverse on it, so that my home is at the end of my navigation and it's all reverse, but this time it's horizontal. I can simply put a row on it, and this way I have my navigation the way I want it. Now what I wanted is that my navigation when I enlarge my sheet take all the space. You see that here it's rather stuck on the left. I want it to take all the space whether my screen is small or large. To do this, we're going to use our li and we're going to put a flex grow on it. Here I'm going to put a 1 on it. If I update it, you will see that my navigation now takes up all this space. I'm going to center my text inside the cells. So I will simply put a text line and say center. If I refresh and enlarge my page, you can see that now my menu takes up all the space and my text is centered in its space. Good morning and welcome in this HTML5 course. In this chapter we're going to make a project to know how to create your personal activity. We are going to be able to start again from zero. I just made a file on my desktop that I called project, and inside this one create our file index.html. So we will put our doc type, we will put a title. Our title will be, for example, my personal activity. So, mon activité personnelle. And I will create my H1 and the list of my activities. We will put on H1. So we will put mon activité personnelle. And we will put a list of our activities with, of course, a link, and in the link a paragraph. Although I don't need to skip a line here. So for example, I will put appel maman, and I will also come to put on an icon. For the choose of our icons, we will go to the set material icons. The set we have quite a lot of icons in self-service, as you can see. We're going to click on developer guide and on icon font for the web. I'm simply going to copy this link to be able to use our icons. So I'm going to copy the link here, and now I'm going to be able to use our icons. So to use them, we need an I tag, and we're going to use a class called material icon. We are going to put a face, for example, so it's going to be face. It's not going to be the writing face, but it's going to be the logo of a face. So if I now update, you can see that I have my little icon with my little face and my little link, appel maman. So we're going to add a little bit of style to our page. We are going to put, for example, a style tag here. And then we are going to play with our selectors. First, we're going to work on the body. We're going to put a font family. We are going to choose Verdana. Then the H1, we are going to put a font size, large. And the text align, center. What it gives us is already not bad. Then we will work on our UL. So we will remove the little list styles. We will put none. We will put a padding at 0. Okay. And a text align center. Then we will work on the ally. And on the ally we will put a width of, for example, 70 pixels, a margin of 10 pixels, a padding of 10 pixels too. Okay, that is not bad, and we're going to put a background color that we're going to define on a rather light gray. So, okay, let's see if we add an activity. What does it give us? If I update, it comes to be put underneath. That's not what I want. I want it to come to be next to it. So for that, I'm going to add a float. So left, I update, and it's well next to. We are also going to play with our class. We put a material icon class. It's here. I'm going to show it to you. It's here, our class icon. And I'm just going to put a font size at 50 pixels. So it's better. My icons are bigger. I'm also going to call my link. And I'm going to remove the fact that it's highlighted. I'm also going to tell my ally paragraph to have a smaller size. So we will put small. Great. The problem we're going to have is that if I put my cursor on my icon, it's clickable. If I put my cursor on my paragraph, it's clickable. But if I put my cursor on the background, it's not clickable. For our mobile applications, for the rendering on our phone, we want the whole zone to be clickable because it will be difficult to click exactly on a small zone with our finger. So I want my whole zone in gray to be clickable. How I'm going to do that? Why is it that in fact we are in a LA? You see that our link is in a LA. It's an inline element. I need to be a block, so I will simply call and tell it to behave as a block. I put display block, and that way if I refresh, you see that if I'm on my gray area, I can click. I'm going to put a background so you can see the difference. We're going to put red. So if I click on anything with a red background, I can. Now if I put on the gray part, I can't. Why? Because in fact we had put a padding. So here you see that on our LA we have a padding. So here I'm going to put a padding at 0 and I'm going to put my padding on my A instead. In this way, I will have all my area that will be clickable. So you see that no matter where I put my cursor, I can click. So I don't need the red background. It was just to show the example. So I update. So now that my element is block type, I will be able to put the width directly on my link. So I update. Great, everything is clickable. Okay, so now we can really start working on the project. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter, we are going to see the continuation of our project, Create Your Personal Activity. So in this continuation, we're going to try to use applications which will be able to serve you on your smartphone. So to see the rendering on your smartphone, you can go on this site, code.html.online, or choose this site and to see the visual on your telephone. So we're going to begin by using Google Map. So for that, we're going to raise Appelle Maman, and we're going to put rather the map of Paris. So we're going to put map of Paris, and here we're not going to put the face, but it will be rather the map. In our link, we will put the link of Google Maps. So https maps.google.com. So to add a city, just put a question mark. Q is equal to, for example, Paris for us. If I update, I have now the map of Paris with my little logo of Google Maps. If I click on it, normally it makes me well on Google Maps and on Paris. Okay, we're going to continue. I'm going to simply copy what we just did and paste it. Instead of just putting the city, we will put a precise address. So there, I want to put, for example, Avenue des Champs-Élysées, 75008, Paris. There, the problem that will appear is that we have spaces. It's not possible. So we will go to a site that will encode our address. So we are on URL encode decode. And so we will simply type our address here. So Avenue des Champs-Élysées, 75008, Paris. So I will put a code, and here is the result that returns me. So I just copied this address and put it on our code. I replace this. I will put work card, why not? And so we have the card of our work. Now if I click on it, it looks for the address of the Champs-Élysées in Paris. Now we're going to make an application for an itinerary by core. So instead of using this time Google, we're going to use Apple, and therefore for the applications which are on iOS. We will put Apple, and instead of putting Q, it will be the ADDR for destination address, and then we will put drive to work, conduire travail. If I register, I have my conduire travail application for Apple. So you see that it starts the itinerary to go to the Champs-Élysées. If you have an Android, you just have to do the same thing, except that instead of putting Apple, you will put Google. So there we will put that it's for Apple, and there for Android. Or with we will simply put Google here. So if I update, I have my little application for Apple and for Google. Now, if I want to walk, I will create an application. We will put balade, jardin, and instead of putting our address, we will put the address of the garden. So, Garden of the Champs-Élysées. And we will have to add here the FLG flag and W for walk. So if I update, now I have my little garden walk map. By click on it, it brings me back to the Garden of the Champs-Élysées on foot. I can specify where I am, in fact, so it will be the source, ADDR. So I will put him, for example, that I am at the Champs-Élysées. In this way, if I update, it puts me, well, the itinerary of the Champs-Élysées to the garden on foot for 17 minutes. We continue. If I want to use public transport to make the same way, I just have to change my W by on or. If we want it to be on Apple app and not Google, I just put Apple and that's it. So I have my application again here. I'm just going to put Apple in brackets so that they can be dissociated. And I'm not going to put walk, but rather transit for public transport or train or simply transport. If I click on it, it will suggest me to take the Metro 1 to get there in 8 minutes. Now we can modify the icons. So here it will be directions in the same way here too. To move by foot, we will put direction walk. And to move by transport, it will be rather directions transit. If I update, I have my icons that are representative. We will make a last one. Let's imagine that if we want to call an Uber, we will change the address here. We will put m.uber.com/ul/? Action equals set pickup, and pickup is equals my location. So here we want to specify the location. It will be directly the GPS. So we will put local taxi, and here we will put Uber. If I update, I forgot to put an underscore, and well, I have my taxi icon. If I click on it, it takes me to Uber. So what we can do is define the same height for all our app. So for that we will put a 8 at 150 pixels. We will see what it gives. It's a little big. Maybe 145 or even 120 would be fine. Okay, so they all have the same size. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter, we will see the continuation of our project and we'll see how to open our messaging applications, phone calls, and social networking applications. How to send an SMS directly via the application. We will simply copy here and we will change our link. So we will put SMS 2 small dots 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. For example, body is equal, and there we will put the message that we want to send. So I choose to put the message. I arrive in 5 minutes here, so it will not be local taxi but a message. And in my small text I will put SMS ami, so friend. If I update, I have now in my little application my little icon of message. We can do the same thing for WhatsApp. So we will simply change the address here and we will put WhatsApp send text. So we will leave message and we will put in WhatsApp friend ami. So here is our little WhatsApp icon. We can also add a call via Facebook Messenger or call a message via Facebook Messenger, and for that we will change the address here. We will put FB Messenger share link, and there we'll have to put the HTTP address. We will put here message and we will put FB Messenger. We can also use our phone app to call directly to the phone. We will have to put tel, 2 dots, and the telephone number beginning with the code of the country, for example, 33, 7, and etc. I put whatever. Here we will put not message but calls, and here also. It will not be appel but call, and there I will put appel ami. So if I update, I have now my icons that are well here. We can also do it with FaceTime. So for FaceTime, it will be user, and we will have to put the domain. And we will put video call and FaceTime here. In the same way, we can have an audio call. It will be enough to add here audio. So there I will put audio FaceTime, and it will be simply call. I update, and now you can see that I have my little applications. We will finish with Twitter and Snapchat. So here for Twitter, we will modify, so it will be https twitter.com/intent/tweet. So here it will not be call, but add, and we will put here new tweet. Finally, for Snapchat, it will be simply Snapchat. In this way, we will put camera, and here start Snapchat. If I update, I have my new icons, so you can test this on your phone. So as I said, via HTML code.online or by hosting your site and testing directly on your phone. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter, we will see how to make your content shareable, namely with snippets. That is to say that you have on social networks such as Facebook or even on the site google.com, you can share the content of a website. Once you share it, you have this kind of small code that we call a snippet with a title, a brief description, and an image of the site. We're going to see how to do that. So we are on a Bangkok guide page. So very briefly, you can copy it. So if you want to pause and copy it, so there is just that. I have shared some pictures as well. If you want to pause, no problem. And then we will see how to make our snippet. First of all, we're going to do it for various sites such as google.com and others, and then we will see how to do it more specifically to share our content on social networks. So there, in fact, it will simply have to add a meta tag. For example, for the description, and therefore a content, and there we will put a description a little shorter than our title. We can put, for example, this is the most complete guide to Bangkok. We could also add keywords. So we will put name keywords, and for the content we will make a selection of keywords that we could type, so Bangkok, Thailand, Thai, food, Buddhism, etc. You get the idea. We can also put the author, so the content we would put our name. So for example, I will put my name. We will say that my name is Jane, and that's it. So this will be used to share your content on various sites. Now, if you want to share your content on social networks, well, Facebook has created a site called the Open Graph Protocol. Here you have the basic metadata that must be used especially for social networks in general, whether Facebook or Twitter or whatever. You see, for example, you will have to type od2.image etc. So we will see it as an example. Here we are again in our code, and we're going to put, for example, a title for our social networks. I'm going to open a metadata. So I'm going to put the name. So it will be og2.title. We saw the form on this side, the open graph, and so we're going to put the content. So here we will put the title, for example, Bangkok, the most complete guide. Then we will add an image. For the image, it's the same. We will have to put og2.image. And in content, we will have to put here the URL of your image. So we can put image slash. You see that, for example, I have an image, so photo og.jpg. You can also download. So we'll put image photo og.jpg. We can do like that, but the best is to put a complete URL. So we will invent a URL. For example, bangkokcityguide.com and with our image, etc. We could also put a meta tag for the description and likewise a content. So here is the idea to share its content with snippets. This method will be more for sharing content on various sites, while this method is really reserved for social networks. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter, we will see how to integrate your site with Facebook. I went to the site developersfacebook.com to be able to show you how to make a content integratable with Facebook. So we will click on Documents, and there we will look for blockings for the social networks. So it's there, social blockings. We will see that we have different types of buttons. We will be interested in the like button. So I click on the button and I will have to configure my button. So we will work on our site. We say that we are going to make a fictitious address, bangkokcityguide.com. It doesn't exist. So we can put a with if we want. As for the layout, we can choose as we want. So here I can put, for example, if I want like or recommend. We will put like. We can choose the size of the button. We will put, for example, 300 pixels. And if I put get, I'm not going to put the share button. I'm just going to put the like button. And if I put get the code, you can see that I now have this code. So first of all, here I have my JavaScript code that I'm going to have to add to my page, and then I will have to add another button here. So these two codes will be copied to our file. We can also choose something else, for example, the comments. So here we can also generate code for the comments. So here you put the URL that you want from your site. We can also choose a width, for example, 300 pixels. You can choose the number of publications, and you can see here the example that it gives you. In the same way, once you have chosen what you need, you just have to click on Get the Code. You have your codes that are displayed. Here is the first code JavaScript and the second which corresponds to blocking. You just have to copy these codes and add them to your page. It's important to know that all these types of blockings will only work if your site is deployed. It's normal if you don't see the modification immediately. You will have to deploy your site on the web to see your blockings displayed. Good morning and welcome to this HTML5 course. In this chapter, we will see how to integrate with Twitter. You have to go to the publish.twitter.com page, and here we will enter a hashtag. For our site of Bangkok City Guide, we will put a hashtag Bangkok City Guide. We simply do next. So there it proposes me a code to copy. We also have the possibility to customize it. So if we click here, we have the possibility to put a catchphrase. So I choose this one. Look at this excellent guide, Bangkok, Thailand. So do you want to set a specific URL in the tweet? Yes. We will put our URL. So bangkokcityguide.com. If you already have a Twitter account, you can fill it in it. We will choose to have a larger bottom. You can see that at the bottom here, the bottom is small. If I click, it's larger. We also have the possibility to change the language, you see, or to leave it in automatic. We make update, and here we will copy the code to paste it on our text editor. So now I will paste it here. And when we have put our bottom I like of Facebook, I also added the possibility to put comments with Facebook. So we will add our Twitter. We can even replace it as it won't work too much. We will put a Twitter here and the comments of Facebook below. As I said to you, in general with widgets, it's necessary to host this site so that the modifications are seen. You'll see that if I update, I have my tweet, but I don't have my Facebook comments. I'm going to host this site and we'll see the difference right away. So here I hosted the site, so you can now see my comments and the tweet above. We also have the possibility to add the other social networks, and we will see that in the next chapter.